We bring you these. Tonight we are talking about wrestling with writing. It's probably one of the more challenging skills that our children progress through as they're aging and getting older. But it's incredibly important. So if you stop and think for a minute how often you're using some sort of writing skill in your daily life, even if it's not paper and pencil anymore, it's just the ability to compose something, compose your thoughts, and convey that to somebody else clearly. Tonight, when you came in, you received a folder that has some materials in it that we'll use later on. You also received a brown bag that has a bunch of other writing materials in it to help encourage writing at home. One of the things that we placed in there for you is a little silver pot, for those of you that peeked in there. It's a little seed growing kit. Just kind of dump it all in the pot, add some water. It'll give you something nice to work on writing about. Maybe as the days grow warmer, it grows a really nice sunflower. A lot of times those things don't work. I promise they do. We've had some adult volunteers who have been growing that same little pot for years, and now it's planted outside in their garden. So just enough to get it sprouted, something great to write with your children about as at least they think they're making it grow, right? Teach them all the things they need to make it grow.
And first grade science is working on it right now, plants.
So we have some activities for you when the teachers are finished, and I hope you have a great evening. Ladies?
All right, so I get to talk first tonight. All right, so if you don't know me, I am Miss Garshell, and this is Dr. Harder. We're from Deerfield Run Elementary. I teach first grade. She teaches kindergarten and is learning all the things about second grade. And we've been side by side for a very long time. All right, so tonight we're going to talk to you about the importance of writing. How to help promote writing at your child's grade level, and some resources to make that reading-writing connection. There we go. All right, so why do we learn to write? Any ideas? Because your teacher needed something for you to do in school. Yes. Yeah, I mean, it does take up a lot of our time, but there's also other reasons we learn to write. It improves our communication skills. Think about it. Writing an email for work, sending a text message, all involve writing. Way back when we used to handwrite letters or send a birthday card. Helps with our communication. It helps our students review what they are learning. One of the things that our statistics, 10% of what we hear, we retain. So if we're just sitting in a classroom and we're just listening, we're going to remember about 10% of it. If we read it, we're going to learn about 20% of it. But if we write it, we're going to remember about 80% of it. Because we're working multiple parts of our brain in order for us to recall it. So when you're sitting writing notes, you're listening, you're reading, you're working fine hand muscles. It's helping us retain that material. So that's why in high school it's important to take those notes. Elementary school, we're not really taking notes yet, but we're starting those skills. What's important? What can we write? It helps us assess your students. What do they know? What don't they know? When they write a simple sentence for us, we can identify what they know about a sentence. They understand we're supposed to start with a period or start with a capital letter and with a period, spaces between words. Also, how they're thinking. We're going to get into how they process spelling. So that helps us understand. Maybe your child's missing, the middle parts of words. They can understand the beginning, they can understand the end, but they're missing the middle part. So that's something we can work on just by them writing things out. Encourages creativity. When we give them time to free write, think of that story that you wrote. All right? I know when you sit down and someone says, just write about anything, and you're sitting there and you're going, well, but when you put on the spot, it's sometimes hard, but when you give them the opportunity to write about anything, write about your day, Write about, the dragon. Write about, whatever your favorite thing is. All of those things are connected to writing, and it's essential for our own self-understanding. Think about our reflections when we write in journals or diaries. It helps us reflect on who we are and what we do. So the next couple of slides have all of the Common Core state standards. Now you're going to see there's a lot of slides and a lot of standards. I'm not going to sit here and read them all. I just want you to understand that they correlate, they go together. A lot of our things we do in writing, we learn from reading. And a lot of the things that we learn about in reading, we then transfer to writing. And we have different types of writing. Sometimes we're writing with information. Sometimes we are writing for a narrative, something that happened to us. And other times we're researching.
And if you take the time to actually look at those standards, you'll notice, I think the first couple slides are first grade and then they're second grade. You can see that they kind of build on each other. Like the first grade skills are embedded in the second, and then something expands when it gets to that point.
And just like always on your agenda for tonight, we have the QR code at the bottom. So you can just scan that and have access to all of our slides. So here we go with our reading standards. Stories, poems, feelings, compare and contrast, information, so those key words that are going to keep popping up. Building upon it in second grade. And then how are reading and writing connected? So just like I said before, in order for us to learn about communication, we need our reading and writing together. So in order for something to be read, you have to have something written. They go together. And it goes through a similar process. You need to gain information and then be able to communicate it. When we teach our students, we like to use texts that have a similar style as to what they're going to be writing about. And then we say, well, how did the author do it in this story? Did they use once upon a time to begin? Is that something you can do in your writing? Maybe they made it into a chapter book where they had it divided up by topics. In first grade, we used to do a research project where they had to pick an animal and then identify the habitat, what it ate. They had to identify what it looked like. And they had different sections that they had to process. This was a big project. It would take us like 2 months to do. But we're building on that reading and writing connection. They had to look at multiple books. Well, how did these authors do it? They used pictures. They used labels. All those things we talked about last time. Can we borrow that technique? We're writing a poem. Was this a poem where it had rhyming words at the end? Did it rhyme every line? Maybe it was a 4-line poem. We talk about these things so that way we can mirror it in first grade and second grade. And it helps with our vocabulary. When they're writing, they learn what those words are. If you're using a word, you most likely understand what it means. That way you can reuse it. And if you don't know, you're going to look it up so that way when you have to read your sentence and talk about it, have something to say. All right. What does the top say? Can you read this? So it's not just teachers who can read this, but our brains are able to process things even if we don't have all of the letters. This is what we call invented spelling. Anybody have a kid that writes like this? Yeah, they're starting to learn how to write. Maybe they're not at this stage yet. I know when we were home doing things on the computer, our writing was harder for us to teach. We didn't have them in front of us. And holding a journal up in front of Zoom, kind of see it, but having to do that for 28 kids, we didn't have the time to work with them like we do now in the classroom. So it's okay if they're not here yet. We'll go through the stages and I'll show you the progression of writing. But if they are at this stage, they understand. We have sounds, we have letters, we have spelling patterns, we need spaces between our words. And maybe they saw some of these words before. They're like, you know what? I've seen can. I've seen that word before. That starts with a C and ends with an N. There we go. They missed that middle letter. Or maybe they tried to sound it out. Read. Well, yeah, I'm not sure about that middle sound. They got some of the letters there. And they put a question mark at the end. Major points there. But long before we can read and write, or write correctly, we have to learn and practice. It didn't just happen overnight. I can't ask your parents, when did you learn how to write? Because it happened over a progression. It's not like when you took your first steps, or you said your first word, you lost your first tooth. Those are milestones we can document with a date. But learning to write, that takes a lot of time. Maybe you started holding a pencil when you were 1. You were scribbling. But you understood that's what writing looked like. You needed to hold the pencil and you were making marks on the paper, because marks on the paper, that's what your grown-up was doing. Then you learned that there was letters. Then you practiced writing your letters. I grew up where my grandmother had me sit and write the alphabet every day before I could go out and play. I have a whole journal of just pages of the alphabet printed. Sometimes she'd have me write sentences, but I knew the expectation. I thank her today because I have that teacher handwriting where you can read it and it looks beautiful. My sister, on the other hand, it didn't work for her. She has the doctor handwriting where sitting there, no matter how many times you told her to write it, wasn't for her. But we have some strategies that maybe could have helped her that we didn't use back then, but can help with forming the letters. But we're communicating, even when we're using just these simple letters. So there's 5 stages of writing. Pre-communicative. So this one's up here. They understand that there's letters and numbers. But if that was by itself, we don't really quite know what they're trying to tell you. Then we have stage 2, which is our semi-phonetic stage. So this is where they understand that letters have sounds. So we can put them together to make words. Notice there's spacing. We're still writing the same sentence, I like dogs, but we still need to work on some dogs. Then when we have our phonetic stage, where we really dig into those letters, we really understand that when we connect them, they work, they make a word. We can start sounding things out. Dogs. And depending on how you say words, this kid goes dogs instead of dogs. Those sounds sound similar, but they're like, that's a D or a Z. And then we work our way up to the correct conventional stage. Now, even when we're at the stage as grown-ups, it's still, I sit there and I go, that word doesn't look right. We're still learning as adults. Our writing is not perfect. It will never be perfect. You can write a word 100 times and keep looking at it. It's still not right. And then you go to your phone and you type it in. Well, I guess it was right. Or, you ask Siri, how do you spell? To help you out. So we're still working through these stages even as adults. Now, thinking about your child's writing. They should hopefully fall somewhere on this scale. If we're still in the scribble stage, we need to really hone in on this. But hopefully they at least know that letters form words and that we can put them together. So for the sake of our time, we're going to start, well, I'll show you a little bit more, and then we're going to start at stage 3. All right, so this is kind of like a timeline, age-wise, of how reading and writing are connected. So when we start off when we're young, audio storytelling. So we start off young, we're telling the story verbally. Mommy, guess what I saw? They're not writing it down very much. They might scribble something down or, draw a picture, but they're not writing those sentences. All through speaking and listening. Now, as an adult, you might want to write some of these things down so that way you remember it for later. Then we move our way into early emergent writing. So, getting past kindergarten, we might pretend to write, we might string some letters together. Ask your child, what did they write? You want to know. Not offending them, but hey, tell me about it. Can you tell me a little bit more? And then maybe start by adding some of those notes below. Oh, well, this is how we spell, cat or dog. That way they start making those connections. Emergent writing. So this is kind of where we should be in the first grade range. Now, we've had a whole year of, not writing or writing differently. So if you're not there, that's okay. But child knows the letter names and the sounds and starts using them. So we should all be at that point. As an adult, ask what the child has written and keep translating. Don't ever say, oh, well, you spelled that wrong, you spelled that wrong, you spelled that wrong. We got to rewrite it. Point a few lower level words out because you don't want them to get frustrated. You don't want them to stop showing you their work. They're so proud of it. They just wrote this sentence. And the last thing they want you to do is to say, well, that's wrong. Oh, look at how great you did. I like the way you formed that letter A. I see you've been working on that letter S. That's really coming along. Find something positive. You might not be able to read it. It's okay. I like the way you put those finger spaces in there. Next time, can you work on making, the letter M this way? Give them something to work towards. Transitional writing. So now we understand words and sounds, and we're starting to form that text a little bit more. You're going to do a little bit less translating and a little bit more of that. Okay, well, look at that bigger word. Is there a way that we can, figure out how to spell that? Or can you tell me a little bit more so I can understand? On our way to fluent writing. So that's about 75% of the words are spelled correctly. Only write the misspelled words at this point. They're on their own. They got it. They understand. They're on a roll. We don't need to correct everything, but point out a few things, especially those sight words. We practice and practice and practice those sight words. When we write, we need to be spelling those correctly. So if you have it as a resource for them, have it in their journal that they're writing. Go back and look at your sight word list. That way it's all together.
I find when my little ones are writing, obviously they write it, when they would write the words, I'd have them read it back to me so that I could figure out what it said. And then I would, like Jen said, put the captions underneath the correct word. And I would say, this is kid writing, and then this is the adult writing. So they can kind of compare where they are right now to where they're going. So they understand, oh, I tried. Look, I matched that letter. I got this letter from that word. I got this piece. They still know that both of those words are the same thing. We're working towards the adult version.
All right, so here's our stage 3 of phonetics. So this is where we're sounding things out. Previously, in first grade, we used to do something called a dictation, where we would say a sentence, or two, depending on where we were in the year, and they would have to write it. We would give them a blank piece of paper just like this, and we would be able to see, A, if they know when we write, we start at the left side. Don't take it for granted. They don't all know this. B, that we have spaces between our words. Some of them will write going down and not write going across. Red flag if they start writing like a score list. I've had it done. But they haven't had enough practice. They haven't read enough books to see that this is how we read, this is how we write. It goes in the same direction. I see capital letters in the middle of words, but they tried. They tried to write the sentence. But that gives me knowledge. I know. They know some sight words. They know am as a sight word. Now over here, these two, they were trying it. They tried to sound it out. You might be able to look. Might be talking about friends. Drew a picture to kind of help you out. Yep. Oh yeah, picking flowers. There you go. See? Could be. I'm picking flowers. Look at, yeah. But they're trying to use those sounds. So when we have like FON for phone, when I would grade their dictation, that would be correct because they had all of the sounds of the word. Now they didn't spell it correctly. There's 2 different grading scales for it. One is phonetics and one is sounds, or the spelling. So phonetics is every single sound. So this would be like I would have 1 sound and then am, 2 sounds. So they got both of those right. And then if it was picking, they would get the correct for P, but the E and the I make a different sound, so they wouldn't get the sound for that. But the C would give them the sound, the E would not, and then the N would, but we're missing a G. Flowers, we would get 3 of the sounds. So we're getting there, and don't always think that we grade based on spelling. Sometimes it is getting the sounds down. What did you hear? But we're starting to see those sight words, and that's why it's important to start practicing those so we can use them and improve our writing, and then we have less to kind of think about when they've written it. So this one was kind of like the first grade area. Does this look familiar? When your child is writing, do they have those sight words that they're starting to use? Do they take risks? So from here, we're going to go to our next stage, transitional. This is where we talk about that spelling. First grade used to start with spelling in like third and fourth quarter. We told to start spelling, so if you have spelling going on in your classroom, great. If not, it's coming in second grade. But we haven't, it's been a different year, so spelling is coming, but we talk about patterns and we talk about the different types of words, but we haven't done like those traditional spelling tests that you think of. But you're starting to recognize those common patterns in words. They're beginning to remember, oh, those short vowels, they don't have an E at the end, but a long vowel does have an E at the end. That's one of our patterns. Or those blends, where we talked about swim, swap. That's one of our blends. Now, they got the E for beach, but they forgot the A in there. They understood long I has to have an E at the end. So they're understanding those patterns that we've been teaching. They don't quite get them all yet, but the sentence is a little bit easier to read, and they've written a lot more. They've taken a lot more risks with this sentence. Now, written by different children, you can tell the other child understood the capital I. This one probably needs to go back and remind them to use a capital I when we're talking about I'm or I can swim. But that's an easy fix. That's something you can point out. Hey, I like the way you put your spacing between your words. I like how you went from left to right. Let's work on that I next time. And this is where we're working towards. We're working towards our goal of correct. So this might happen in second grade, might happen third, might be fourth or fifth, depending on where your child is. I couldn't wait to eat tacos. This is correct for the most part, but what's missing? Period at the end. And notice they tried to change over here. They realized, oh, my C shouldn't be big, it should be small. And then they also have capital E. So it's not exactly perfect, but it's correct is what they're going for. So they've learned how to spell. They've learned how to use our apostrophe when we're adding contractions together. They've learned that AI combination to spell weight. We can still improve from here. But we have less misspellings. About 75% of the words are correct, and you no longer need them to translate for you. You can read what they're talking about. Now this one, I would encourage to continue writing. Why couldn't you wait to eat tacos? What was it about the tacos that you couldn't wait to have? Keep writing more.
You use that picture to expand too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I tend to have my kids draw pictures first, and then when they write their sentence, okay, they've written, I like cats. So what kind of cat? Well, you drew an orange cat, you can add that verb in there. What is the cat doing? They have sun out there, the cat's outside. You can add that detail to the picture. So having that visual will help them increase the amount of write.
And it's really interesting to see this translate over to typing. So when we talk about writing, we're traditionally talking about our handwriting. But with the use of technology now, we have a lot more things to teach with our writing. So we teach the writing that goes in the journal or on the paper, but we also teach the writing that goes on the computer. My biggest thing with my kids right now is they really want to do capital letters in their sentences. And so some of them, their computers are set up when you press the space bar after the beginning of the sentence, it auto makes it bigger. But when it doesn't, well, how do you make that letter? Well, you have to press the shift button to make that letter. Or they see a capital letter and their Chromebook keyboard is in lowercase letters. Well, where is that letter on the keyboard? I don't see it. So having that correlation, and sometimes you need that name tag or that alphabet in front of them. Like, remember, that was a lowercase letter. This is, find it on your name tag, and look at that capital letter that's next to it. Matching them. Because they think there should be a button for everything. They love pressing buttons. They do. They love it. But teaching them to use the space bar. When they first started in first grade this year, it was a string of letters together. Space bar, guys, space bar. So they've learned, Some of them love the space bar now, and we have, really big spaces in between words. So we're trying to hone it in. But it's those simple things that we've learned, we have to teach them. They're not taught those keyboarding skills. I know in high school, I had a keyboarding class where I had to learn the proper hand technique. I had to learn, the different commands. They don't get that. They were given a device and said, here, learn it. So we can't take for granted that they do know these things on the computer. Yes, they're great at pressing buttons. They're so great at it. They can turn their screens upside down, inside out, colorful. They can make it talk. All of the things that, we don't need them to know how to do. But when it comes to making things like an exclamation point, you gotta press the shift button and the number 1 at the same time. Or you press the shift and hold it down and then press the 1. Because they'll press shift, lift up their finger, press 1, and then it makes a 1, and it didn't work. Miss Garchelle's a liar. She told me the wrong thing. So even those small skills for the keyboard make a difference when we're writing, because they might know when they handwrite it out that I need a capital letter for a name in a sentence. But I didn't know on my computer how to make that happen. They're really clever. They know how to do voice to text, and that's really fun too. Some of mine have figured that one out on Google. Press the little microphone and you can just talk. So they're getting there. But even those computer skills, we have to stop and teach them. They're not necessarily getting it at school. And ask them, is there something you want to know on your keyboard that's going to help you with your writing? Is there something we can practice? Instead of always, playing the games. Pull up Google. Pull up the Google Word and Google Doc. Let's write a sentence. Let's, see where you're at. You're going to be their best helper.
You can always take that sentence they wrote and then I'm trying to convince mine that the finger space, the spaceman that we have in our class, is the space bar. He's the space visual on the keyboard on the iPad. It's the same thing. That spaceman is the same thing on that little space bar. It's the same exact concept. But now we got to the fun part of how we can help at home. So I'm going to switch with you because I can't see it in the manual. All right, so how to help with writing at home. You're going to teach your child how to choose topics for their journal writing. Just like Ms. Garchelle said, kind of giving them that free write is a lot of fun, but sometimes they can, I don't know. I got nothing. Give them a prompt. What did you do at school today? What did you do in PE? Maybe how much fun did you have at the park today? You can write about that, giving them a prompt.
Write a note telling on your sibling. They have so many things to say about their siblings. Or the pet. What did the pet do?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I like those. Those are cute. But using those, and then you can help them write for different purposes. Letters, charts, notes. Practice making that birthday card. Send a letter to grandma. Even if she's, 2 doors down, you can still write the letter, put it in an envelope, and go give it to her. They have different purposes. Make a shopping list together. Maybe let them create their own grocery list or copy, you two practice together. These are the things we need. You're going to write the words. That writing serves different purposes overall. You can show your child how to use word charts. like the simple spelling, the dictionaries, and other tools that will help them. For example, having the sight words available in the journal will help them reference them, how to use the dictionary.
Picture dictionaries are really helpful.
Yes.
There's some that even sort them by topic, so they'll have all of the foods together, they'll have all of the cars together, they'll have all of the people together, the colors, so that way they flip through the book. Oh, here's the page, and then they can look for the picture, and then they know how to spell the word. I love those.
Yes. I have this whole little section. I think this milk made these things before, and it's in a big pocket chart, and it's like pictures of McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Taco Bell, Best Buy, Target, all these words they see in their environment. They know. I know that says Target. Look, you just read that. You can go write that. You know what that says because you've heard it enough. You've been there enough. They know what it is. So having that visual, they can make that connection because you've gone to Walmart enough. I know that word says Walmart. I can write that down. So having that visual connection between the pieces. And then you teach conventions of writing, like punctuation, the capital letter, and then as they're ready. I know in kindergarten we're talking about the capital letter at the beginning, a punctuation at the end, and then we move into the apostrophes, the parentheses, the question marks, the explanation points, all of those different things, and how you use them in the writing. I know a lot of mine at the kindergarten level, they know what that question mark is, not a clue how to use it.
Or they critique you when you write it. You didn't write it correctly. That's not what it looks like. I'm like,
Yes.
but you knew what I was talking about, right?
That's right.
Did I complain about yours?
Correct.
Yep.
Or they like to tell me, I have a question. And I'm like, do you really? Does your sentence end in a period or a question mark? That's a question mark for sure. And then, I really like your dress. Pretty sure that's a period and not a question mark. So they have to understand the difference. So I have a statement. Yeah, okay, go ahead. You have a statement by all means. But so these are kind of the charts that we can use in the classroom, but they're writing goals. You can see they're both very similar. I can write the sounds that I hear where they're sounding out the word. I like to tell them to pick the word they don't know and kind of put it between your fingers and pretend that you turn the word into a piece of bubble gum and you've kind of massaged it between your fingers and now it's all slinky. So okay, now stretch the piece of bubble gum out and stretch those sounds out. What do you hear as you stretch that piece of bubble gum? They can hear the D and the O and the G as they pull their fingers apart, and then they can write those letters down. I can use finger spaces. They get a kick out of it. I call this the spaceman, and he flies into space, and then he has to land on planet paper in between the words in order to do his job correctly. So they know that their little fingers can help in between. It's a little difficult. Try to, you see them write with their right hand, and then they have a spaceman with their left, and like, how do I get across? Okay, that's fine. Or you can make a popsicle stick and make him a spaceman, and he can go in between the words. I can use capital letters first at the beginning of the sentence, not in the middle of the word, unless it's a name, that can be in the middle of the sentence. And I can use end marks, and then they add more details. I can add details to the picture. I can use my word wall, but these are the sight words or like word families that they can immediately recognize and add to that sentence. I can write neatly. That takes progress. A lot of mine will start. We got massive. I'm like, look here, that's 3 lines. You've taken up the whole thing. Your one word and your letter I. You have to work on, writing in the line, making the spaces, making the pockets.
And they do. That was our biggest thing this year, coming from home, where they, some of them had a free reign of how they were writing. And coming into the classroom, I wasn't used to this. I'm like, wait a minute, they don't know, 2 lines, and they don't know, the letter spacing and things like that. So that was a big thing for us this year. I like to highlight the lines. So if your child is having trouble with the size, I highlight the line at the top, and then I'll give them 2 lines to write, and then I'll highlight the line at the bottom, and then give them 2 more lines and highlight. So it gives them a visual representation of where they should be. Because some of them can't visualize it. They just see lines and they start going. So give them boundaries. I usually, use a highlighter or marker. And I had to start with most of their journals this year. We're working in this space. And now we've moved so far away from that. It's incredible. I'm like, all this practice, you guys, think about what you were doing at the beginning of the year and look where you are now. So pointing that out, those successes. But sometimes you do have to define those boundaries. I wouldn't do it when you want them writing on one line because that's a lot, but you could. Mine think it's funny now to see how small they can write. And I remind them their teacher is old and I have old eyes and I can't spend all day looking at their itty bitty letters. But the fact that they've taken it from big letters to the itty bitty, like it shows that they've gained control of that pencil and their fine motor skills.
The highlighter is your best friend. Because I'll write the word and they can trace over that and they can visually see how big their letters are supposed to be, how many words should fit in this area, and they can understand, okay, this is an appropriate space. I shouldn't have my one word across my entire list. And then I can tell you more, they can expand. Like that visual effect that they can add more to the sentence because there's more details in that picture. They can go and tell you, colors and the placement and the people and the nouns and the verbs and all of those details in this stuff. So, what can I do to help with spelling? Read and read and read and write and write and write. Over and over and over again. It's a cycle. Just keep doing it over and over again. Using the words as frequently as you can is the best way to improve spelling. The more they use it, the more they're going to understand how to spell it. I know when I was in elementary school, I was not a good speller. Could not grasp those concepts, so I just had to keep writing it. Mom keeps telling me what it is. We keep spelling it together. We're going to tell it over and over and over until you figure it out, and then eventually we'll get it. So the more that they're using it, in their writing or their conversation, the more they look at that word and hear it, the more you repeat it, they're eventually going to be able to make the connection and spell those words.
And we've been practicing going back into the book. So when we have a question that we need to answer, let's go back in and underline. What did we know? We read a story about sea turtles today and how they were they hatched from the eggs and how they had to make their journey back to the beach or back to the ocean. And it asked them, how did the story end? Well, where can we find the end of the story? So they all flipped to the last page. Great. What happened on that page? And so they're verbally telling you, like, all right, there's that word, there's that word. Let's underline it so that way when you're writing your answer, you have it all on the text. The author gave it to you. And now you don't have to ask me, how do you spell swam? Well, it's right there on your book. We underlined it. Helps them out. It's right there. Gives them a reference.
So then, some fun stuff. You can create paper bag books, Valentine's party blowers, nonsense books, spelling homework, postcards, journaling. There's all sorts of fun stuff that you can do to practice the writing at home. And we're going to make something.
And I saw some of y'all homemade classrooms that you guys did at home during virtual learning. Don't get rid of them just because they're back in the building. Like all of those resources that you had, keep them available. Some of you guys, I saw word walls at home. I saw posters at home. Some of you had better looking work than I did. But keep those things, or even, give them their corner, make their own little school, make their own words and things that they need. So it gives them a comfortable space when they are writing at home.
You'll be surprised. They'll pull up something and they'll look at it and they'll write it down and they'll be able to tell you what it was. Like, how did you know that? Like, I'm always surprised. The next thing I know, I've got this sentence with like 3 sight words and then the word target. You didn't tell me the word friend, and that's a sight word, but you know target? But yeah, you got it on the wall. Fair enough. You are correct. It is on the wall. You can use it. You can write it, and they can put it in the sentence, and then they can read it because they know what it says. They have all those details. And then for a spelling flip 4, you can flip over a word card, look at the word, say it out loud, say the letters, and then flip it back over and write it on paper. So it's kind of almost like memory a little bit because you have to flip it over. You're looking at the word, you're going to spell it, you're going to say it, you flip it back, but then you have to write it. You're not necessarily matching 2 pieces. But it'll help that muscle memory to they've said it, they've looked at it, and they've put it in the text. And also tracing, copying, recalling, write the word in the first column, have them trace the letters, then you have your child copy the word, maybe hide the first two words, and then they can spell without looking. You can make this T chart on the paper, and they can practice that way too. Does that make sense? What are you guys doing at home? Any ideas that are working maybe, or that gets them to write and have fun, or the handwriting? That's why you're here. It's fun. I get it. They're not a fan, but I like this little picture. Miss Garshell found it. It says, "If you can read this, thank you, teacher." And does anyone know what the bottom one says? If you can read this, you're probably a teacher. This is what their work looks like.
Teacher. Yeah, teacher.
But you can see they understood. They understood the letter sounds, the finger spaces. We're missing the punctuation. That's fine, and a capital letter. But the idea is there. The sentence structure is there. We're going places with this file. All right, we're making moves with that. No. I'll go back. This one.
All of this, understand that for what grade of a child do you take this as normal?
I'd say second graders are writing like this right now.
Second grade,
Second graders are writing like this right now. Right.
two lines like this, like the lower part.
Yes. Yep. Because the kindergarten, you'll see kindergarten work just like this, but it's usually like 3 words. I don't get this. I don't get this many words on my paper. But maybe first grade might have the 2 lines, and then the second grader now has the 3 lines. So that they're moving towards it. They can still spell like that.
I'd probably want, like, second grade probably have more of the sight words spelled correctly, like the if and the you. But when it comes to like a length, it's, remember we're on a curve this year, everything from last year. So now, like I said, if we were grading this on phonetics, they'd get a lot of the phonetic score. But if we were grading it on spelling, they'd get A. They'd get 1 point out of it. So.
The same word. She's not wrong. They are the same word. But they tend to want to rush through things. They want to move fast. They want to get done with the word. So maybe, having more games with the writing, getting it more engaging. She might be more intrigued to write a little bit more and spell out that whole word like you're asking. So that she could just be like, okay, I'm done. Okay, go.
Or give her a challenge. Can you write 50 letters in a sentence or in 2 sentences? So then she's going to want to spell out mother because it's going to take up a letter. She's going to take up a few more letters on there. But give her a challenge. How many letters can you write in a minute? See how many words, and we'll build on that.
You know what? I'm asking a question because I don't have the time. I get upset, I get mad, and I'm asking to overreacting with what she's doing, expecting, because I feel, mom,
And it's also, you're asking her as well, and the teacher asked, it may have a different perspective. She might go with it. But I wouldn't fight the mom-mother battle. But if she's abbreviating like you, like with the letter U instead of writing Y-O-U, I'd be concerned about that. Or like thanks, like any of that text slang, I would try and knock that out. But mom would be acceptable. But if like the thanks is like the TX or the THX, I'd knock that out. No, we can write thanks or we can write thank you. I would focus more on those. Or even, all right, well, let's learn how to spell because. Give her more challenging words and, mother will come along when she's, older and really, wants to.
without minding what I should don't
Mhm.
writing and all. So when it's my
Give her those like minute challenges to say, all right, you want to do it fast? Well, let's see what the biggest word you can write in a minute, or what's the most words you can write in a minute. And
thank you so much for taking your time.
no, you're fine.
That's what we're here for. All right, so then we have some writing samples, and you'll see that they're from my range to all the way probably the second grade. This is kind of like the beginning stage. As you can see, I don't think any of this makes sense. I just
Me?
put two letters. Yeah, see me? You see that?
Yeah, okay.
Maybe the dance, yeah. The fun, maybe with the cat. I don't know. It's kind of the beginning, But then we have here. Does anyone know what that says?
So how would we help this child get to the next stage? What advice would we give this child? Spacing.
Uppercase letters. Yep. And proper spellings.
And rating is I separate and work on the capital lowercase letters.
That's good. Make up made up spelling. Which for outside. Here. But it's basically some full sentences, right?
Minus something.
But we're missing something.
Period.
There's no period. That's a one really long breath
punctuation.
that you have to read that whole thing. But they've got the capital letter. They do have a capital T in two, but that I don't think that would be where they
I'm
stop.
traveling in a rocket ship to Saturn.
Correct.
Saturn is orange. Pluto is the smallest planet. And the sun is orbiting star.
It's a big star planet.
Let's hope you have a good plan.
Planet. Yeah.
They sounded it out. They heard it. They stretched that word. They got there. So you can see they're progressing. They're doing good.
Years and years and years of practice.
Any ideas?
Sometimes.
It's got a lot of makeup.
The leopard.
It's a leopard. Any advice for this child?
You don't like the heart with the
heart. The heart exclamation points, decoration. We added the period, the exclamation, and the heart version, all at the end. But I threw them in there. I had 3 sentences. I have 3 punctuations.
So with this one, if you notice, there's a common theme. They've used the same words over and over, and they've misspelled them wrong each time. I'd give them a word bank when they were writing. Hey, what are you writing about today? Do you need me to spell anything ahead of time? What are some hard words that you know you're going to have trouble with? And I'd maybe pick 3 and then write them down so that way they can reference them when they're going back. Oh yeah, I remember Mom wrote that word down for me. Here it is. I can go back and then I can spell it every time correctly. So then they don't have to go back and correct it. But whatever it is they thought, they did it consistently, but give them a word bank.
Probably need to practice it up with these letters. Capital letters.
That's a common theme.
It is. And it's fine.
And it's age appropriate.
Correct. This one's my favorite. This friend's super excited.
Seed it.
very excited, right? We got lots of
So
exclamation points.
happy.
They understand. They clearly understand how to use an exclamation point. They understand how, what the purpose is.
We have learned about gardening at some point.
We have a capital at the beginning. We got lots of capitals for sorry though. Weird. Or so.
So this child was probably saying, you gotta write for 10 minutes or you gotta fill the page. So they filled the page.
We are serving our purpose. We're doing exactly what we were told. Filled it all up.
That's not our goal.
Please don't make me read that.
So, of all of those writing pieces, did you see your child in any of them? Doesn't matter where, it's any of them.
Yeah, you don't have to tell us, but hopefully the comments and the things, what can we do? Provide you with help and feedback.
Man.
Oh, we did see this one. We did the fine motor one.
Oh no, did I click past it too fast? Where did it go? I don't see it. Oh,
There it is.
yeah. It was there.
So, in addition to all the writing, improving hand strength. Have you noticed, they get tired after writing a lot? Maybe they're not holding the pencil, crayons, anything correctly. So these are kind of some things that improve their hand strength. Rolling, squeezing, or kneading Play-Doh. That'll help their hands, even moving that grip. Squeezing clothespins and spray bottles. That'll kind of help with that open and close. I can even help with scissors too. Building the blocks, climbing, squeezing the glue bottles instead of actually using glue sticks. That kind of helps that fine motor skill. Popping bubble wrap, that is my favorite thing to do. Okay, might be annoying after 5 minutes, but it's okay. It's going to help their fingers. Using tongs and tweezers to kind of help pick things up. That'll help them grip with those just a few fingers. And then cooking or baking in the kitchen, that kind of helps them having to move their fingers and getting that hand strength going. That'll promote the pencil grip, how they're going to hold the crayon. And there's also things that you can put on the pencil that'll
Just
help
be
them.
careful with them because they don't all encourage correct hand holding of the pencil. But increasing their hand strength is really what's going to help. You notice them shaking it out. My hand hurts. Their hand might hurt. Being on the computer uses different muscles than holding that pencil. So we do have to build those muscles back. So change it out. Practice some of the writing with the pencil, but also use that Play-Doh time. It's fun, and you're also working on getting those muscles.
You can always take the Play-Doh and make them build words with Play-Doh. I have my kids simple, they spell their name, the sight word of the week, they can read the letter, but then they're still playing with the Play-Doh, and they're working their fingers, but then they're spelling those words that they eventually can put on paper with a pencil. So that'll help.
But so now, I'll click all the way to the end. Really fast.
In case you didn't know, next week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Just so you know.
So if you're looking for something, make a card, an occasion, sit down, make a card for your child's teacher, appreciate them. They've worked super hard this year. It's been a year. Please appreciate your teachers.
Anything.
We appreciate it.
Any questions, comments, concerns, anything? Before we move to the tables for our craft. Yes, ma'am.
So for my son, when he has to write speeches, I don't have him sit down and try to, connect the sound out every word. And I know that's sometimes you have to do, but the time constraint. I'll have him give me a sentence and then I will write it. Is that okay for now?
It is. And I'd say to break away from that, you can give it to him as a sentence starter. Give him half of the sentence and then have him finish it. So that way he's not totally losing your support, but at the same time, he's still getting to practice his ideas as well. We use some of those in the classroom as well. So, the first 3 or 4 words, write together and then give him that freedom. Or like using that word bank, like he's going to need trouble or he's going to have trouble with these words, make a list on the side so he can reference them if he needs them. Maybe he knows how to spell it and, he'll surprise you. But I get it. That time, some of them take forever and a day to write one sentence. And then the others are like, or, I'm done. And then you have the other one who's still on the second letter. So, yes, I get the timing, but change it up a bit. Do the sentence starter, do a word bank, just so he's not constantly relying on you to write the sentence, because then they come to us and they're like, but I don't know how to spell it. And so change it up a little bit. All right, let's get crafty.
All right, we're gonna move back to the tables.
But before, we'll show you. So your journal's gonna need a cover. Before you put all the papers together, you have the paper. You're gonna make a cover. Don't just staple the paper. Just a fun tip. Preschool parents needed help. But you guys are advanced, so we know you're gonna put a cover on your journal.
Yes. We'll move back and then we'll make something else as well.
Yep.
We're gonna make it now.
And we're also gonna do something a little messy.
That's gonna be the best part. The mess.
Make sure you put the table that has a bin on it. That's what I'm gonna do.
Alright, so we're gonna do the less messy one first. So you can look in your folder and find a colorful one. You should have 2 pieces of construction paper. And then a bunch of writing paper. We have some extras over here. One's gonna go on the top, and one's gonna go on the bottom. All the paper, and then there's 2 pieces of construction paper. You're gonna mix in paper sandwich. So your red is the construction paper, and lime paper is the curtain. And then you have staplers in the clear container, so you can about 3 staples should be sufficient down the left side. Unless you want to do it like a top thing, you can also do it that way. Your choice. Creative liberties, yeah. Oh, that's for the end, yeah. So we're working on this. But yes. And there are materials in the bin, but you want to decorate the cover. You can write Charles Wayne's journal, writing journal, their name at the bottom. Whatever you want to do. If you don't write homework, they might not want to. Encouraging words. You can do this. I love you. You have great ideas. Inspire them with your color. And then in your bag, you also have other smaller them to use. This one doesn't have any more lines in it. No lines in it, so they can free for all. Those small ones would be good to see if they can right from left to right, the spacing, they're not going to be a shopping list on that paper. And then obviously this will help them better with the structure. Alright, so
She already did the extension. Second, she has to do
two more. Yep.
Se tiene que hacer la comparación porque no se entiende. No, tiene que poner tus aquí porque esto va a ser así. Se para que no me tres.
The front is everything.
Entonces la parte de frente la va a decorar como quiera, con stickers.
And then when you're done, you can put everything in your brown bag because the next one is going to be a little messier. We don't want any of the things to get on your journals or your folders or anything. So you can show us you're ready when you put all of your things in your brown bag. Go to your staff. Yeah, your staff. Gotta see it. Big letters, but not here. No. Just for one tonight, right in here.
Oh, okay, this is.
Alright, looks like we're almost ready. Few more left.
Okay,
You ready? Your model. coloring. So you can color the gel. Now, fun fact, the ones that are in the black containers already have a color to them. So if you are not looking for an amber color, you can one that's not in the black container. But we're going to make the bags so that way they can practice using their finger, that fine motor skills, and they're going to practice writing letters or sight words with the gel. So you can 2 minutes.
How many spoons do they have?
You just try to fill that bag maybe like halfway-ish.
And so there's food coloring. If you have a clear one, the food coloring is in a tube.
It is very concentrated, so you won't need much.
You will not need a lot of different colors.
Not like using a liquid.
And if you don't like the color that's at your table, if you want to shout out a color, we can kind of help you.
There's purple, there's pink,
Orange.
orange. Halfway.
And then when you're done, we'll keep it shut.
Now make this one all yourself.
Yeah,
Put it down.
probably might need this. I don't think.
Yeah, that works.
Well, look at this one.
Let me see.
Orange. Purple.
This is okay. This is what I'm talking about. This is
Be afraid. Be afraid, guys. Really. Be afraid of us. I promise they won't be afraid of us. Yes.
okay. I know, but no, because no, porque ya. How do you want? What do you want this for?
You take your finger and then you put letters in there. You push. Yes. Do you need a big letter?
And you can make more than one.
Yes, there are more bags if you want to make 2.
Yeah, there's more bags than
It's actually más. Más que bien hecho. I'd rather use like. Like that.
Yes. Yes.
I like the one. I like the one.
The salt, yeah, that one's easier.
Or the.
Shady green is good.
That's right.
When you're finished, you can use the tape to close off the top of your bag.
The duct tape that's in the bins, you can take it and seal the Ziploc bag shut so that way there's no gel to come out.
Right? That's how much it is.
They don't put it in their hair.
Yeah, you probably don't want it in your hand.
That's protein, that's it.
You want to try it?
No, but if it has protein, that's it.
We teach little people.
When you're finished, you take it. Greg, with all the taste. And then when it's full, you can take the duct tape and kind of open the tape at the top and seal it that way it doesn't get everywhere from the thing. You'll put it flat on the table. Near it.
No, yeah, that's.
You'll essentially let it lay down and press
This is
it
just
over.
for this. You can have right on.
It's you still got
Okay, no, now what you do is you put these in case in here, you know, you fold it, so it's closed, and then this is for writing letters and words. You know, you go like this, and you can write letters. Practice. Letters. Teacher?
Yeah.
Be a chapter.
No, children will come upstairs in just a couple minutes if you want to finish up what you're working on. We'll come back together in May, one more session. That one's all about what's to do over the summer. Okay, when we have that comfortable time. Which ways to keep them learning over the summer. We lost a lot in the last year, so we definitely want to make sure we make good use of the summer. As you are leaving this evening, there are extra bags on the back table. You're welcome to take another one with you if you have other children at home, nieces, nephews, neighbors, other of your own biological children. Also, there is items left from dinner up here as well. You're welcome to salad, pizza, some water bottles, some snacks. Please take all of that with you. You're welcome to take as much as you like. Otherwise, it ends up just being wasted. We hate wasting that. You were given an evaluation on the way in. If you wouldn't mind filling that out. And the ladies at the blue table will collect that on your way out. Okay? I'm happy to come by and get your messy spoons and stuff.
Here, Will,